I've just had a few comments on my channel recently, which has inspired me to make this video. A few of you out there have asked me, I've bought the Nikon Z 180 to 600mm lens, but now Nikon have released the brand new 600mm f6.3 VR PF lens. What should I do? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I like to get sharper, prime light shots out of this Z 180 to 600mm. Let's go and rip into it. Let me start out by saying those Nikon prime telephoto lenses are just superb, and I'm sure the owners of those lenses would completely agree with me. You get amazing quality images, but hey, for the price you pay, you'll darn well want to. Yeah, but what about those people that don't have huge budgets or money trees growing out there in the backyard, and instead you've opted to buy this Nikon Z 180 to 600mm lens? Well, there are ways of getting sharper images out of this lens. I'm going to be using this shot I took of a Lewin's honeyeater at sunset as an example. Now, I'm going to be using the programs Lightroom Classic and Topaz Denoise AI, and a little disclaimer here, I'm not sponsored by these guys. I pay a monthly subscription to Adobe, and I also bought that Denoise AI program with my own money. I'm using the latest version of Lightroom Classic at the time of making this video. It's the one with the Liberace version of Cousin It on the welcome page. To begin with, I get the shot roughly where I want in terms of exposure, color balance, etc. And this brings me to my first tip for getting sharper shots, is to make sure you use the right settings to begin with before even taking a shot. So like this case here, you'll see I did absolutely everything wrong on this shot. Too high a shutter speed, too high ISO, etc. I should have used a much lower shutter speed, something around 1/250th of a second. That would give me a much lower ISO. So if you take that into account, the lower the ISO, more likely is you're going to get less noise in your image and you'll get a sharper type subject. But in my defense, I was in a hurry to get this shot before the bird flew off, so I didn't really have time to fine tune my settings. Okay, so what if you made the same mistake I made here? How do you fix it? It might have been a rare bird or wildlife species, and it's the only shot you got of it. So to begin with, I'm just going to come over to these sliders here. I'm just going to lift up my exposure just a little tiny bit. Contrast, I'm just going to add something like about, say, 5. Highlights, I'm going to drop down because I just want to cut through that background there. Shadows, I need to lift up because I want to see that bird's face. Whites, just lift them up a tad, and then the blacks, lift that down. Actually, that's just a little bit overexposed now, so I'm just going to drop that back down. Now, this was taken in the afternoon sunshine, which is, I don't know, it's kind of like got a little bit of an orange tinge to it. I guess what you could do is just come up to the color temperature and drop that down a little bit into the blue. And actually something around about there I'd say would be good enough. If you just scroll down here to where it says presence, I'm just going to click on the clarity. I'm just going to lift up by about 5. Dehaze as well as about 5. Vibrancy, I'm going to lift that up to about, say, 18, as well as the saturation to about 4 or 5. So you can see that afternoon sunshine is on the bird. So now if I drop that down a little bit in the blue, that's a little bit better there. So if we push in, yep, look at that. You can still see it's very noisy. We can see the bird's face a little bit better now. The eye is a tad soft. But now what we're going to do is we're going to engage the magic of the Topaz Denoise AI. Before I do this, I need to say something. If you scroll down and underneath the detail in Lightroom Classic, you can actually use the noise reduction feature in Lightroom Classic. It does a pretty good job. I've just found that when I'm using the Topaz Denoise AI feature, it just lets me have a lot more control over different aspects of the denoise. But before I do this, I'm just going to come up to where it says crop, and I'm going to use a 16:9 crop because we are here on YouTube and I like to make my shot 16:9 so you guys get to see it full screen. I'm just going to crop that in to something like about there, where I'll just put that Lewin's Honey Eater over on the right hand side of the frame. So if I just hit enter, okay, that looks pretty cool. Let's just go to full screen, which is there. That looks pretty good as is, doesn't it? But like I said, if you crop in, just escape out of this, but if you still pop in there, you can still see that noise in the background as well as on the feathers across the eye and the beak. So I've got the Topaz Denoise AI program as a plugin on Lightroom Classic. To access that, you just come up to Photo, and then you go Edit In. There it is, Topaz Denoise AI. And you go. So let me just scroll across. This will be pretty quick because I'm on my faster computer here. I've got this new PC that's much quicker. Get ready for this. So I've got this up in a split screen type situation to show you guys. Look at the noise on that bird's face, on its feathers, on its beak in the background. Watch what happens when I let go of the mouse. Look at that. Let me just come out a little bit and zoom out to 50%. Look at the difference between those two there. I mean, on the feathers have been just nicely cleaned up compared to this shot over on the left here. And then let me come back into something like 100% on that face again. Now look how incredibly crisp on the eye that looks. It looks much better. Look at the sharpness on that beak now. The smooth type of thing, the way it's got rid of the noise, it's sharpened the eye. It does such a good job. You can see why I like using it so much. So what we'll do is we just hit apply. That's then going to send it back over to Lightroom Classic. Now when we push in, look at that. That is just magic. So the final shot, it's sharper, less noise, and it's very close, if not on par with a prime lens-like quality, and for a small fraction of the cost of those Z prime lenses. Just quickly, here is another example I'd like to show you. I took this of a rainbow lorikeet feeding in my bird garden. And already you can see the difference Topaz Denoise AI makes, particularly around the eye here. If you look around the left-hand side, it's just that little tiny bit soft, very reminiscent of what you normally get with a zoom lens. But over here, look at the crisp sharpness around the eye now. Now that's very close to what you get when you're using a prime lens. So let me just push in here to 100%. And this is where you'll really see the difference. Look at that. You can see it's just that tiny tad bit softer over here on the left, but on the right, look how amazing that eye is and how sharp it is. You can even make out those little tiny mites on the bird's feathers. It gets rid of that noise on the bird's feathers as well. You can see here on the left here, there's a little bit of noise, but over on the right, it really does clean it up. It does such a good job. That's what I love about this program. I think I only paid something like 79 Australian dollars for it while it was on special, and I think it's cheaper over in the US. Yeah, I always use this program. It just makes life a lot more easier, and it gives me sharper prime-like shots when I'm using that Nikon Z 180 to 600mm lens. Obviously, those Nikon Z telephoto primes are meant for pros that specialize in sports and wildlife photography. They are just superb. And look, if you can afford them, by all means, go and buy them. They're fantastic. But if you've got this lens and you did want sharper shots, I hope this video has helped you out. Never stop creating, and I'll see you next time.